Hello, this is episode 3 of. I remember a big thing that I struggled with when I first came into year 11 was understanding essay structure. That's what we're going to be looking at today. Essay writing, at the crux of it, is just communicating. That's all essay writing is really about. It's just communicating your ideas. But a lot of the time, those ideas get confused and people get caught up in trying to sound smart instead of trying to be clear. And that's what we're going to be working on today. We're going to be understanding what is the exact structure for both mod A and mod B. They're very similar. First, we're going to look at mod A, and then we're going to look at mod B. So let's get started. So module A involves studying two texts and understanding the resonances and dissonances between both those texts. A big part of module A that a lot of teachers look for is synthesis. How well have you talked about or discussed the concerns of both the texts, their similarities, also their differences, and actually talk about the textual conversation between these two texts, which is what a lot of students kind of miss out on. The most common mistake or the most common struggling area for a lot of students is they will talk about their original text. For example, they'll talk about the tempest and they'll talk about hag-seed, but they won't really talk about the textual conversation between those texts apart from superficial differences like both the protagonists have power and they have a daughter and they've been wronged, or but Prospero lives on an island, Felix lives in a prison, or the story takes place in a prison for Felix. But they don't talk about how the setting of both of these texts symbolizes the inner mental state of both of these protagonists. Prospero is on an island and Felix is in prison because both these people have closed off windows to the outside world. They have refused to interact with the outside world or any new ideas in any way whatsoever. They have refused to let people in. They have refused to let new ideas in. And that's what you see at the base of both of these texts is people having genuine connections that helps them reevaluate, what they were doing. Similarly, if you're doing the Crucible, the way that Reverend Paris, he is first introduced is in this really tiny, dilapidated, it's not too bad, but it's very small, and there's just one window which is closed. Again, it's symbolic of how this protagonist or this specific character has just cut themselves off from the outside world. What we're going to be looking at today in this particular structure is how we can help, this won't completely fix the problem, but it'll definitely make it easier to spot or easier to fix. What I strongly advocate for is using 4 body paragraphs and a mod A essay instead of using 2. That's because using 4 body paragraphs gives you more opportunities to discuss the textual conversations between each of the texts. Even if you're doing or you're looking at this with text and human experiences, having 4 body paragraphs instead of 2, one for each text, makes more sense because then you can talk more about how this related text is supporting your text. Does that make sense? Great. Step number 1, we have our intro, which is meant to be roughly 150 words at max, right? No more than 150 words. Now, what's the first thing your introduction is supposed to do? A lot of people will say, write your thesis, which isn't exactly wrong, but you're missing a very key part. The first thing your introduction is supposed to do is answer the question. I know a lot of students say, oh yeah, but I'm getting to it, or it's at the end of my intro. No. The first thing that your intro is supposed to do is answer the question. That's it. There's no debate about that. As soon as a marker reads your first line, they have a general idea of where your essay is going to land. By the time, and I know this because I do a lot of marking, by the time I'm done reading your introduction, I already know where your essay is going to land. I already have a mark in mind, and that mark is only moving up 1 or 2 marks at most. Most markers mark this way. They'll still read your entire essay, but they can straight away spot from your introduction, where's this student going? No matter how good your essay is, if you didn't answer the question, it doesn't matter. If you need help answering the question, I'll leave a link below to another one of the videos that helps you master that skill. The second thing is introducing your texts, right? Now, the way that a lot of students do this, and it's absolutely fine if you're still doing this, because I was still doing this in year 11, but you're in year 12, you have to fix this ASAP, right? Because you're writing a formal English essay, which means that you need to follow formal English conventions. So the way that you would introduce your essay, the way that you would introduce your text is this. For example, let's say you're doing William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. Okay, let's just say that that's what you're doing. So you'd go, for example, what you do is William Shakespeare's 1597 tragic play Romeo and Juliet explores. So what you do is first you write the full name of your composer, then you write the year of publication, which I'm pretty sure is 1597. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Tragic, which is the genre, so it was a tragedy, and the form. And then you write the text name, and that either needs to be in quotation marks or underlined. I always underline all my text names because we put all our quotes in quotation marks, so visually it's easier for the marker to see that you're referring to the text if it's underlined. And I strongly recommend that you underline as well. But this is the way that you should be introducing your text. This is the formal way to introduce it, and this is the way that you need to be introducing your text. So the way to go about it is, the next thing you want to do is introduce your ideas. Now notice how I said ideas and not themes. We're going to be looking at a key difference now between ideas and themes. So a theme, for example, is love, right? But an idea is a comment on a theme. So when you're in senior levels of English, which includes year 10, year 11, year 12, you cannot be talking about themes. If you're studying Macbeth, you should not be saying the theme of ambition. If you're studying something like Gwen Howard's poetry, you should not be just talking about the theme of life and death. What you should be saying is, what is that particular theme, or what is the particular insight that you have learned about the human condition or human relationships? So I'll explain this with an example. So the theme we chose, so our theme is love. An idea is a comment on a theme. Right? For example, what is this theme revealing about the way humans are, the way that human relationships work? So an idea could be, for example, the inevitability of falling in love. Now, Romeo and Juliet doesn't actually explore that, but I'm just giving this as an example. The inevitability of falling in love, which means that no matter who you are, you're going to fall in love. You can say that if you're a senior student, which I presume you are if you're watching this video, William Shakespeare's 1597 tragic play Romeo and Juliet explores the inevitability of falling in love. Done. That's how you introduce your text. Now, because this is a Mod A essay, and I said texts here, both of them need to be introduced like this. Now, after you introduce your idea for your first text, the next thing you want to do is either use the word similarly, if the idea that you're exploring is similar to this one, or use in contrast. Right? So you need to have words like this always at play when you're writing a Module A text. And that's how you do your introduction. So the last thing you do here is conclusion, where you use words like therefore, or hence, or ultimately, and tell the marker what it is that you have pretty much learned by studying or doing this comparative study from both these texts. Now comes the body paragraph. So we have 4 body paragraphs, and we're going to be doing something very specific. So we've got body paragraph 1. Now within body paragraph 1, the first thing you need to do is answer the question using your thesis or topic statement. It's the first thing you need to do. The second thing, and if you're one of the people who writes essays that they then memorize and take into class, great, that's what I used to do as well. Of course, you can't answer the question right now, but make sure that you leave space or like create a kind of scaffold for how you're going to mold your topic sentence to answer a question. Do not write your memorized essays based on a question, because you're going to lock yourself to that question and then you're not going to be able to move past it. Answer the question using a thesis, topic statement. Now the next thing you want to do is IEE. What is that? Now your topic statement outlines the argument that you're going to be making. The bulk of your body paragraph needs to prove that argument. Now you need to do this 3 times. Now here's how you prove an argument. So the I stands for idea, evidence, explanation. Now you don't have to use IEE, because I know a lot of schools have different ones. They have TEAL, PEAL, but you can use any of those. But the point is you're supposed to use that within this. Now the idea is, what is the claim you're making? Evidence. Where are the quotes and techniques that prove this claim? And lastly, explanation. So, what is the claim you're making? Quotes and techniques. How do your chosen quotes and techniques support your claim? Now, sometimes you can even do this all in one sentence, but the important part is that it needs to be done within your essay. Because a lot of students, they get stumped. Hey, how do I actually start my essay? How do I get through my essay? I don't know where to start. I don't know what to write. Now, what I'm going to show you, because this is roughly the basic structure, I'm going to come back to the other 3 body paragraphs. I'm going to quickly show you how you actually start your essay, because a lot of students get stumped with that. Step number 1 to starting your essay is creating an analysis dump. An analysis dump is essentially you open a Word doc or Pages if you're on a Mac and you use Pages, and essentially every single bit of analysis that you have for both of your texts, you pump in there. If you've done research online, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. It does not matter. This is not plagiarizing, because you're just researching. You just keep putting in everything you think is interesting. Oh, I like that. That's interesting. Oh, that was insightful. I didn't think of that before. Don't put things in there that you think sound smart but you don't understand. Only put things in there that you understand and you find interesting. Once you feel like you have done enough research on the entirety of the text, not just one part, not just one poem, the entirety of the text, the entirety of the collection of short stories or poetry, whatever it is you're studying, the next thing you need to do is start going through that analysis dump. And then look for the 2 points that you find the most interesting or engaging, or the ones that you connect with the most. If you're doing this for Mod A, and this is the same, like regardless if you're doing Mod A, text and human experiences, Mod B, if you're doing it for Mod A, the only thing is you have to do it for 2 texts and find a common theme. If you're doing it for Mod B, then if you're doing T.S. Eliot, then you probably have to look for 3 poems and then 3 key ideas that link together. But for text and human experiences and Mod A, you're looking at 2 texts and roughly the ideas that kind of bridge together. Now, once you have those ideas, you just pull all the information from that analysis dump that you're going to be using for those ideas and create a separate, the useful analysis dump, whatever you want to call it. And once you have done that process, this is what you do. The first thing you do is you write idea 1. You write your entire idea. You don't need to worry about how it spans across both the text. You just need to write what's your general idea. Idea 1. And you write idea 2. Same thing. The general idea that you're going to be exploring in both these texts. Do not write one-word ideas. Those are themes. Right? Make sure that your idea is revealing something about the human condition. Make sure you're going to that point. Right? So for example, if your idea is the inevitability of falling in love, what does that say about the human condition? That love is a universal feeling. That love is something that all of us experience. And then idea number 2 can be how our being in love can help us develop relationships that are stronger and ones that are based on empathy, or how being in love teaches us empathy, right? Now, both those ideas are linked, but they're different, but they're linked. Idea 1, idea 2. Now, once you have those 2, then you go into this next stage, which is idea 1 in text 1. So you go into idea 1 in text 1. So how is this particular idea, which we're saying the inevitability of falling in love, or how love is something that all of us experience, is explored in the first text. And idea 1 and idea 1 in text 2. So same thing, and again, do not write one word answers. You're only going to hurt yourself if you do this. Idea 1 in text 1, idea 1 in text 2. How is this similar idea explored in text 2? Look at, oh, this character goes to this, it was this particular event. Write those things down, bullet points, everything works. Same thing again for idea 2. Idea 2 in text 1, idea 2 in text 2, same thing. Once you have this scaffold, that's when you're ready to write an essay. Do not start writing an essay before this. Otherwise, you're only going to find yourself stumped. Your tutor or your teacher is going to tell you, start again, start again, start again. This doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Your structure doesn't make sense. This part here is not making sense. You don't have an argument. And it's better to do things the right way. Like, you have so much stuff to do in year 12. You don't want to be spending copious amounts of your time on just one particular essay, redrafting and redrafting. So, body paragraph 1 is answering the question using a thesis and topic statement. It's going to be talking about idea 1 in text 1. So, idea 1 in text 1. Now, body paragraph 2 is a little bit different. It's mostly the same, but just a little bit different. Body paragraph 2. Oh, and also body paragraph 1, each body paragraph is roughly meant to be 200 words. Body paragraph 2, same thing. Answer the question using your thesis. But here, there's an extra thing you also have to do. Make a link to the idea or text you were discussing before. That's important, right? You have to have flow in your essay. It needs to make sense. Like, how did you go from this idea to this idea? You have to have that kind of connection. You just need to make a connection to how this paragraph is similar to that paragraph. So within your essay, it needs to have a similar focus. You know, for example, if you're doing Tempest and Hag-seed, if the idea you're exploring in the first paragraph is how power corrupts Prosper's mind, and not only dehumanizes his subjects but also dehumanizes him, you need to have a similar argument in terms of similar to Prosper, Felix goes through the same process, and then add something extra. There's a reason why you're studying the Tempest and Hag-seed. If both those texts were absolutely identical, then you would only study one of them. So Hag-seed is definitely offering an extra perspective, and you need to refer to that in your opening. Right? Then same thing again. Here you're talking about idea 1 in text 2, and you're doing IEE 3 times. Right? But the extra thing you're also doing is continually comparing how text 2's exploration of idea 1 is similar and or different to text 1. What this means is that you have to continue to look at what are some things that both these texts are exploring similarly, but also where do they diverge, and what are their reasons for diverging. So the two biggest reasons for them diverging is the fact that both of them are written in different contextual periods, and the fact that they're both different mediums. So Hag-seed, for example, is a novel. The Tempest is a play. The only time that this is not the case is Sylvia Plath, if you're studying Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes' poetry. But even then, I'm sure that you could find maybe a little bit of difference in the way that they wrote the poetry. For example, like the structure or the particular writing style that each of them used. And then at the end, of course, like at the end of both of these, you have the conclusion, which sums up what insight about the human condition you learnt. And that's pretty much it. You do the same thing for body paragraph 3 and 4. So body paragraph 3 is Again, answering the question using a thesis, and now you're looking at idea 2 in text 1, and body paragraph 4 is idea 2 in text 2, and similar things. Right? But in body paragraph 3, so every paragraph after body paragraph 1 needs to have that element of how is this different to that. So compare body paragraph 2 and body paragraph 3. Because your second idea is again building on your first idea. So then look at how it's significantly diverging or going a different route from the other text, from text 2. How is text 1 still different? Now, for Mod B essays, the only key difference here is that you're looking at one text, right? If you're doing poetry, then yes, you're looking at a couple of different texts. And if you're doing poetry, I strongly advise that you do 3 body paragraphs. The Mod A explanation covered a lot more than I thought it would have on its own. And it pretty much kind of covered what you're supposed to be doing with Mod B too, but I'll quickly do a run through of Mod B as well. And if you need any extra info on, a particular concept like textual integrity for Mod B, there's a link to the video below, or I'll leave it up here. I'm not sure how it works. And just have a look at that video and that'll explain textual integrity to you in a much more detailed manner. But today we're just going to do a quick run through. So again, we have our intro. That does not change, 150 words. So you answer the question, you introduce your text or texts, introduce your ideas, and highlight that your text has textual integrity. The other video shows how you do this. And conclusion. Now, your body paragraph 1. So what I recommend if you're only doing one text is to just do 2 body paragraphs. So body paragraph 1, and that will, again, same thing. But here, so when you first answer the question using a thesis, nothing much is changing. But once again, you are highlighting a structural feature as part of your discussion of, textual integrity for your whole piece. Then you do the IEE part, but now you do it 6 times because your body paragraph is roughly 400 words now. Then you do your conclusion and done. Same thing with body paragraph 2. So build on that idea. Again, answer the question using a thesis, and then also highlight the structure feature, and then IEE 6 times, and your conclusion, and then I forgot to mention this in the other video, but have a conclusion to your essay. Even if you're running out of time, haven't finished, write a conclusion, right? Because there's a mark for a conclusion, you get a little tick, that's an extra mark. Just have a conclusion. It's roughly 50 words, have that conclusion. And that's a very simple scaffolding that, once you wrap your head around, becomes something that's just your go-to for writing essays well into the future. Thank you so much for coming to class again. Hopefully that this time was productive for you. And as always, remember to take a shower. That's good.